Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May 6th. The council is meeting again today to continue to the review of the FY27 operating budget and capital improvements program. Madam Clerk, would you please chair today's agendas?
Good morning. Today's agenda has been revised to reflect that consent budget items 1D, device client management, non-departmental account, and item 1R, Department of Permitting Services, has been removed from the agenda, and both items have been rescheduled for work sessions on Friday, May 8th. Also, Councilmember Sales is attending today's meeting virtually. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. So, the first item on today's agenda is the consent calendar for FY27 operating budget and FY27-32 capital improvements program. Is there a motion to approve the budget consent calendar?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
No. Moved by Councilmember Sidney Katz, second by Councilmember Don Lukey. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passes unanimously with those present. We don't have Councilmember Mick yet. We're going to move on to the first item. Now we're going to discuss individual department budgets. We're going to start with the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. If you're from that department, please move forward. I see the director here. And I'm going to turn it to the chair of the PHP committee to kick us off.
Thank you, Madam President. Welcoming up the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Council staff is there. The county executive recommends a total of FY27 funding level of $77,729,110. That's a decrease of 7.1% over the FY26 operating budget. Expenditures are partially supported by revenue collections, estimated at almost $62 million, which is actually a slight increase over the FY26 amount. The PHP committee voted 3-0 to recommend approval of the FY27 operating budget for DHCA as recommended, including placing the following items on the reconciliation list. The position to implement eviction notification, Bill 3125, that's $125,180. Position for implementation of Bill 225E, that's $121,320. Those are both two additional FTEs. Compensation for grant-funded positions that exceed the grant award in the amount of $277,497. Backfill of federal funding reduction to continue supporting fair housing testing in the amount of $25,000. The PHP committee also voted 3-0 to recommend approval on the following CIP projects that were transmitted by the executive as part of his March CIP amendments. Countywide facade, that included an additional $600,000 of state aid, which we appreciate and thank our state partners for their work. White Oak Commercial Area Improvements and Revitalization CIP, that program's an additional $75,000 of state aid in FY27 compared to what was anticipated from the January transmittal. Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund, the AHOF CIP, this defers $5 million in loan repayment proceeds from FY28 instead to FY29 as compared to the January transmittal. And Revitalization for Troubled and Distressed Common Ownership Communities, that program's an additional $3.63 million in loan repayment proceeds over the 6-year CIP. The PHP committee also voted 3-0 to approve and amend the Affordable Housing Acquisition and Preservation CIP. Approve the county executive's March CIP amendment, which programs $239.9 million for affordable housing loans, including a total of $86 million in new appropriations for FY27. In addition, the committee voted originally to program $4 million above the executive's March CIP in taxable HIF bonds in FY27, but part of the recommendation was to ask staff to analyze and determine resources needed so that we could equalize the new FY27 appropriations to the appropriations in FY26 to ensure level funding for our primary affordable housing program. That was the clear committee intent. We heard back from council staff, DHCA, and OMB staff who reviewed the FY26 appropriations. and came up with a different number. And so that is the official committee recommendation, is confirmed by colleagues that will be before the body. And just to explain it, they looked at the 10.1 million of loan repayment proceeds received in the project in mid-year of this year. And the council would then need an additional 5.9 million, not 4 million, but 5.9 million above the executive's recommendation to the CIP in order to ensure level funding. Just to note very clearly, that recommendation is 5.9 million. That's the committee recommendation before the body, but did just want to make sure and confirm to colleagues that would result in additional about 550,000 in debt service transfers within the HIF operating budget in FY28, but this does have no impact on the SAG or on CIP reconciliation and has no operating budget impact as well. So I just want to note that it's money within the HIF that is being programmed in the HIF, but it would ensure that we are at minimum at level funding in our affordable housing commitments, which was a shared intent and goal that we had. And I appreciate, just to note, OMB staff, council staff, DHCA staff working together to make sure that we got that right and that the number is the appropriate number. So that I don't think we do, because the committee recommendation was clear that 4 was the placeholder number pending the staff analysis. So I think that is the, if it pleases the president, I believe that is the committee recommendation. You're pleased, I'm pleased. Appreciate my colleagues for talking through that and agreeing on that, which we all were happy to do. So with that, it's, that's the one kind of complicated factor here, but I think we were able to simplify it with a lot of work done by staff offline, which we appreciate it. And with that, I'll yield back to you, and you can yield to anybody as needed.
Thank you so much for that excellent report. Great job by the committee members. And Director, if there's anything else that you would like to add, and actually, you know what? Let's hold it for a second. I'm going to turn it to staff. Is there anything missing from what the chair of the committee mentioned?
No, just one item that was transmitted as part of the executive's April CIP amendment. That is another amendment to countywide facade easement program. The executive is recommending reducing '568,000 current revenue FY27 in that project and adding $650,000 of state aid. So that's just a minor funding switch / additional state aid. But other than that, no problems. And this was not reviewed at PHP committee.
Yeah, I was going to say that does need to be moved, so I would move that change.
Moved by the chair of the committee, second by Councilmember Jawando. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously by those present today. Is there anything else? That's it.
That's it.
So with that, I'm going to turn it to the director in case is there anything else that you would like to add? Excellent work by the department.
Scott Bruton, Director, Department of Housing and Community Affairs. No, I think Councilmember Friedson did an excellent job of summarizing what happened in the PHP committee. And we're happy to answer any questions should any council members have them.
Thank you. I'm going to start with Councilmember Will Jawando.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. We did a lot in committee and appreciate the chair reporting that out. These positions that we're adding are results of legislation that is needed to implement. So I think that's why even they're important to put on the list. And I just want to, I always love to give a shout out to the facade program, which punches above its weight and really, we hear from residents a lot about that. And so I'm glad we're continuing that. And then, of course, to meet our commitment, even in a tough year, to the affordable housing funding that we did last year. I know that's been important to a lot of our community members and appreciate all the work of the department. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Great comments. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak or have any questions. With that, is there a motion to approve the Department of Housing and Community Affairs budget as amended today? Moved by Councilmember Andrew Friedson, second by Councilmember Will Jawando. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously with those present right now. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to move on to the Housing Initiative Fund. That's all of you. I said we're going to move on the item, not that you have to move. I'm going to turn it back to the chair of the committee, Andrew Friedson.
Great. All right. Housing Initiative Fund. We This funds 24 FTEs, and ultimately, I'm going to turn it over to staff on this. There are a few different items here, but let me turn it over to staff actually.
Sure.
On this
Yeah. So the HIF itself is part of the DHC's operating budget, but for the HIF itself, just two things to note. There is a 12.6% reduction in operating budget appropriation for 27, primarily due to additional debt service to fund HIF taxable bonds. So that's the major change. There's no new positions or programmatic changes otherwise, because it's a non-tax supported fund. There's no reconciliation items to consider. And then the other item for the HIF operating budget is as stated, the council's action to approve the additional 5.9 million taxable bonds in FY27 would affect the FY28 operating budget for the HIF. So that's a future consideration.
Yeah, that's the debt
No
service
decision.
that I just mentioned, approximately 550. That's subject to the interest rate at that point, but 550 is the placeholder understood amount, give or take that number. But pretty self-explanatory on this one. The HIF is complicated, but the decision points before the body are pretty straightforward.
Yep.
There's no changes. We have a committee recommendation before
Approve as
the
recommended by the executive
body, as recommended.
Thank you so much. And I'll see anybody asking to speak. With that, we have recommendation from the PHP committee to approve the Housing Initiative Fund budget. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously by those present here. Now then you can move. Thank you for coming. Now we're going to move on to the Department of Transportation General Fund. Our friends from DOT, I see Director Conklin here. And as they settle down, I'm going to turn it to the chair of the T&E committee, Chair Glass.
Okay. We have a number of items that are MCDOT related. I first want to thank my colleagues for a thoughtful conversation on our infrastructure and on road safety and on future transportation projects, all of which we'll get to this morning. Also want to express my appreciation to Mr. Kenny and MCDOT. So item agenda number 4 is the Department of Transportation General Fund. And before we go through the items on the reconciliation list, I first want to emphasize the importance of these funds for our residents. Since we passed the Safe Streets Act in 2023, the Transportation General Fund has provided critical services towards implementing that and many other of our priorities, including safe routes to schools, incident reviews, improving site infrastructure such as medians and curb designs, high visibility crosswalks, beyond pedestrian hybrid beacons, and hawk signals. And so residents know that they are safer because of all these efforts. So the T&E committee placed 4 items from the CE's recommended budget on the reconciliation list, totaling $596,166. Those items were a $305,000 increase to operate our traffic signals and streetlights. It's important to note that if this increase is not funded, the systems may not be operable, putting all road users in jeopardy. Another item is a $250,000 increase in funds for additional parking enforcement outside of the parking lot districts. And this program supports MCPD's parking enforcement operation beyond neighborhoods with residential parking permits and peak hour travel lanes in downtown Silver Spring and Bethesda. And the executive projects 1/3 of this program will be paid for by the parking fines themselves, and the remaining 2/3 will be funded in the operating budget. A third item is a $27,900 enhancement for funding of the new subdivision road maintenance program. And this increase is based on the amount of new roads for subdivisions built by home builders each year that MCDOT elects to maintain. And a fourth item is a $13,266 addition for funds regarding the uninterruptible power system maintenance. And as background, MCDOT maintains traffic signals on state highways, and starting in FY27, SHA is requiring MCDOT to supply backup power to all traffic signals on state roads in the event of power outages. These items are ones that we have said need asterisks next to them because while they are on the rec list, they are requirements either for general usability or because of state mandate. There are 4 changes to the CIP projects that the T&E also took up. One is the CE recommends shifting $238,000 in unused FY26 GEO bonds from the completed Veach Drive project to fund the Burtonsville Access Road Bridge project. The county executive also recommends shifting $32,000 in unused FY26 GEO bonds from the completed Park Valley Road Bridge project to the Burtonsville Access Road Bridge project. And together that's $270,000 in technical adjustments. The county executive also recommends adjusting appropriation for the new Amherst Avenue construction as part of the bicycle pedestrian priority area improvement in Wheaton by moving $2,519,000 from FY28 to FY27, and the adjustment will not impact the expenditure schedule. The committee also recommends, based on suggestion from council staff and agreement with MCDOT, of a $50,000 decrease to the increased cost of residential parking permit program and license plate reader program. And after the T&E committee finished its work session, the county executive sent over 2 additional adjustments to the CIP, which we will review as full council. First is the addition of $878,000 in additional federal aid awarded through SHA for the application of high friction road surface treatment at several locations throughout the county. And second is a $1.227 million addition in federal aid, including nearly $900,000 to install pedestrian hybrid beacons at 5 locations, nearly $46,000 to construct pedestrian safety improvements, and $280,000 from the 2024 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant for the Safe Turns demonstration project. I will also note that Councilmember Friedson has requested a technical change to the project justification for Bradley Boulevard, which was noted in our first work session, that it was later on in the CIP projects, and that the committee also recommended 2 programmatic reductions proposed by the county executive totaling $575,000. The first is a reduction of $125,000 in promotional giveaways for school zone pedestrian safety. And the second is a $450,000 reduction, which is about 16%, for road resurfacing. And I'll note that this decrease reduces less intensive but more proactive road repairs by 3 miles. And the committee unanimously recommends all of these changes. Madam President.
Thank you so much for that report. I'm going to turn it to the director and to staff before I let council members speak. Actually, you go first.
Sure, happy to go first. There are a couple moving pieces here, just some clarifications. I apologize. There's a revised staff report that added a third additional CIP project that was an adjustment transmitted by the county executive on April 21st. This is also a technical adjustment, replacing $50,000 in FY29 GEO bond funding for the Bowie Mill Road Bikeway project with $50,000 in state aid. The county received $50,000 more in state aid than we thought we were going to in this General Assembly session, and it's programming that funding. So that is in the revised staff report. I will also note that the $50,000 decrease reduction in the residential permit parking cost increase that the committee took has since been offset by a $50,000 write-down in revenue. That was sort of an error originally in the budget transmittal that has since been corrected. So that has been baked into council staff's tracking and is correct on the back end. But just wanted to note that. I will also note that the committee had a conversation around this last item around on the reconciliation list, which is at the very top of page 2 of the staff report cover sheet. The $13,266 addition for uninterruptible power system maintenance. This is part of an ongoing negotiation or agreement process with the state, which will net additional state revenues to offset this cost increase, which led the committee to question its relevance on the reconciliation list. It was added because that revenue had not yet materialized. But in conversations with MCDOT, it's also that this obligation has not yet materialized because the revenue and the obligation are part and parcel of the same agreement. So council staff and MCDOT have come up with a solution that this item, if the council chooses, can be just simply reduced from the budget as this agreement continues to be ironed out between MCDOT and the state.
Excellent. Now we're going to turn it to the director.
Well, thank you to the chair and to staff for presenting this very thorough packet. It reflects the conversations we had at committee. I do want to mention that this particular budget category, as the chair mentioned, does support our traffic operations and safety programs and highway maintenance programs principally, and those are both direct services to the public. There's not a lot of extra activities in these. It's trimming, mowing, drainage repairs, traffic signal operations, traffic signal repairs, and keeping all of those systems functioning. So it's a very important and core activity for the department. And with that, I turn it over for questions, but we're very happy with the way the committee handled the discussion and appreciate the work of the council on this item.
Thank you so much. And I also want to extend my appreciations to the DOT family. You guys have been extraordinary. At least with my interactions with your staff, it has always been very positive, even during challenging efforts throughout my own district. And I'm speaking now as a district council member. You have always been there, and the work that you did during the snowstorm. Let's not forget that. It was chaos, and you and your team handled it so well. It was an unprecedented episode, and they cost us almost $50 million, by the way. And I wanted just to say that as we begin digging into DOT's budget, okay? I'm going to start with Councilmember Wojo-Wando.
Thank you, Madam President, and echo those compliments to DOT. We've really enjoyed working with your department over the years, including in the last storm, despite the challenges. I'm going to make one motion, but I want to just clarify why I'm making that and not others. There were 4 items on the reconciliation list. I'm only going to be talking about the civilian enforcement item. It's a new program. It's not a continuation of services. And I appreciate that you're saying that 80,000 of it would be paid in new fines, but there's obviously still needs, that would still leave $170,000 in cost, at least, to the general fund. And we have a huge gap this year, as you know, that we're trying to fill. And while expanding parking enforcement, particularly civilian parking enforcement outside of the parking lot districts is a good thing, and I do support that. I think to be fiscally responsible this year, it's something that we're going to have to look to do in a future year. The other 3 items on the rec list, I think are really important, and I appreciate the chair bringing this up, and you mentioning it as well. These are operational things that are that influence every day: traffic signals, street lighting, traffic management. We don't want to. Those things are people that are safety issues. People count on them, and so I won't be making any changes there. The highway operations contract escalation is a contractually obligated, correct?
Yes, there's about a 2.5% to 3.5% increase in the contracts that support that activity, and that allows us to maintain the same level of production and activity as we do now with that increase.
Got it. Okay. So just wanted to say there's some things I'm not going to put on the list, but this one I do think is important. So accordingly, I'm going to move that we reduce the civilian parking enforcement 250 item from the list.
We have a motion on the table by Councilmember Wiljowondo, second by Councilmember Evans. Is there any discussion on this item? Yes. So I'm going to start with since I have you first, Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you to the department. We had a great conversation, and I'm glad to see that we're going to be able to move that $13,266. It's really bothering me. Just before speaking to the motion on the floor, I just really want to emphasize the importance of the $305,000 for the operating budget for capital projects. It's the fact that we did the capital projects and committed to that, and not to be able to actually operate streetlights and other things. So I just wanted to emphasize that. We had a good conversation in committee. Regarding the civilian parking enforcement, appreciate the motion that is on the table. And I will just say, I'm going to underscore that this is civilian parking enforcement. And one of the things that I have long advocated for is moving to much more towards, in our county, towards civilian parking enforcement and the need for it in our community. And so given, I understand this is a new position and based on what I said yesterday, but given the structure of this, I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Yeah, I just had a quick question on that, and I appreciate the reason why this was put forward, and I'm trying to understand the actual impact here. And the bigger question to me is really the impact on police staffing. And so I don't know if you're in a position to answer that, but my understanding is there are lots of reasons why there's an interest in doing this, but one of the reasons that has been discussed for a while is because that we have major staffing challenges with hundreds of vacancies within the police department. We can't fill the shifts that we've got. And if we can take police staffing out of the police department that don't need to be sworn officers and police and move it to other departments, including Department of Transportation, that are more aligned with that goal, that would be a potential benefit. So can you just talk through that for a second?
I don't know the direct impact on police staffing, but I can talk about the origin of the program recommendation here. Assistant Chief Administrative Officer Stoddard got police and DOT together, and there's a common problem of I'll call it nuisance parking. It's long-term commercial vehicles, abandoned vehicles, and it occurs all throughout the county. In every corner of this county, you'll find this, in Germantown, in Littonsville, in Colesville, areas outside the normal parking patrol areas that DOT maintains, which are the former transportation management districts, the parking lot districts, and the residential permit program. Those all have routine patrols. Those cars are cited. If they start to be there for a very long time, they're removed. In these other locations, the regulations are the length of stay that governs how long a parked car can remain. And it typically does not get a lot of attention for police. Rightfully so. They have other demands that are more pressing in terms of public safety. So the complaints come from residents about these vehicles in their neighborhood obstructing sight lines or preventing them from using their street to park their own vehicles. And the notion was over time to expand the Department of Transportation's role in covering those areas. And the pilots would be some park and ride lots that we currently know we have abandoned vehicle problems in. Littonsville, Colesville, Germantown, Gateway Center Drive, and Germantown is one of the, and Clarksburg is one of these locations. And then see how that goes over a couple of years with some focus in those areas, and if it's working well, to expand it. And the revenue versus cost is really unknown because it's a new program, but it's clear that there will be citations and abandoned vehicle auction associated with this that would generate revenue. So there's a placeholder assumption for the revenue offset. It reduces the demand on the police force. I don't know if it really directly changes how they've deployed their resources today, because this is a relatively low priority item for their response. They do respond to it when it reaches a threshold, but on an everyday basis, it's a low response requirement.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I'll go back.
Thank you for that. Next, we have Councilmember Krista Mink.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. That's helpful. I will say that this is something that we get calls about in my office all the time. And my suspicion about potential impact on the police force is in alignment with, I think, what you might be suggesting, although I know you don't have data on it, which is that I would not anticipate a tremendous shift in resources there, because right now we're not covering it sufficiently. It's just low on the priority list. So it is, which is also to the point that this is an expansion of services at a time when we're facing great fiscal constraints. So that's what I'm weighing right now. And I think my inclination is to leave it on the reconciliation list for consideration against the other options when we see how much revenue we have, et cetera. But knowing that we are going into a very, very, very tight budget scenario here, and that this may well not make it off the list because it is new and an expansion. But I think I think what we're hearing up here and in front of us, which I'm glad to hear, and I appreciate the executive branch's work on this, is that this is the direction that we want to go. We have a plan, and so whether this gets implemented this year or next year or future year, I'm glad to know that we are moving in this direction and that there is a plan in place.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember John Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for indicating that there's a revenue placeholder, but truly it's an unknown as to how much this can ultimately pay for itself. I too can't support the motion and do want to leave this on the reconciliation list for further consideration. I think every district council member up here has been dealing with these issues. And look, residents are tired of hearing we have a problem, but sorry, there's nothing we can do about it because we don't have the people to deal with it. And it's true, it's not a police emergency type situation. And in terms of how law enforcement triage calls for service that come in, priority calls have to be those where there's an active crime ongoing or an incident has happened and they have to do investigation. And so parking enforcement is rather low on that priority list. That being said, that's why it's appropriate for a civilian parking enforcement scenario to come into play. And one of the things that I'm thinking back about, we met with our retirees, our county retirees at a luncheon, and one of the gentlemen was inquiring about, the free ride-on buses and so on. And, there's lots of policy reasons why that decision was made. But one of his concerns, and I don't think it ever got addressed, was, hey, that I get that people weren't paying the fees and then it cost more to replace the fee boxes, but there was this undercurrent of consequence-free. Right. And right now, our residents, in terms of thinking about the basic government services that we can provide, are feeling a lot of there's no consequence. There's nobody to take care of it. These are the basic things that we expect as residents to get handled because these create chronic situations in different neighborhoods or parking lots, et cetera. And that deteriorates the quality of life for our residents. That also impacts economic development. Something I know we're trying really hard to do here is to generate new interest in that. And so when you have this undercurrent of things not being able to get resolved, or what seems like a push-pull from residents back and forth with the government about basic services not being taken care of, it leads to that kind of disappointment and that feeling that we're not going to get the job done. So I'm not going to support the motion because I do want us to consider how best we can, even in a tight budget situation, figure out ways to deliver on basic government services to our residents, and believe this to be one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I also will not be supporting the motion. I believe this is reducing the demand from the police force, and to the points already made, it's a low priority call, and then the police get blamed for why someone didn't come out and take care of the problem. And so I believe that the civilian idea is the better idea. I also believe that for the revenue versus the cost, this is one of those items that you hope that we won't get revenue. We hope that people will stop parking there and causing a quality of life issue for their neighbors. And many times it's the same people over and over that do that. we've all gotten those calls that, they always park in front of my house, and so that becomes an issue. But I believe that this could be a possibility that people will have a better quality of life if we do it this way. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Lori Sells.
Good morning, Director Conklin. I just had a question, not about the agenda item, just I know we haven't talked about the emergency response, so I don't know if I should ask after we take a formal vote on this, or...
Yeah, can we hold that for a second, and after we make the vote, I'll turn it back to you, okay?
Thank you.
So I'm going to move on to Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Sorry, I was getting myself back in the queue because I thought we were disposing of this. I'll hold my comments because it's about another item, not on the particular motion.
Get yourself back in the queue. All right. So I have now Councilmember Shebra Evans.
Yes, so I did second the motion, and I wanted to thank Director Conklin for your work. I think this is a great idea right now because of our tough budget constraints. That was my reason for making the motion, but I do think it's absolutely necessary. But at this time, because it's an enhancement or an add-on, that was my reason. But thank you all. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate Councilmember Evans' point. I just wanted to ask, is there a non-Cadillac version of this, to keep the transportation pun going? Obviously, as I said, we want this not to happen. We all get calls. Is there a way to pilot something or to do something with existing funds?
I'm not sure how scalable it is at the moment, but Joe's
just the
parking chief may
250.
know.
We all want something to happen, but I don't think this is going to make it off. I won't support it off the rec list versus the other things that are on your list that we have to do, and other. So let me ask that question. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe Sumana with MCDOT. In short, this really is a scaled down version. So this is probably 1 or 1.5 staff person that's going to be responding to calls with the vehicle, because you do have to go all over the county. So that was the initial thought. Let's just start small, see how it works, and then expand over time. So this really is the scaled down version.
So this,
it is not
this would support a person and a half, a vehicle, and then obviously so they can go around, and it would be similar to the parking folks we see in the parking lot district.
Yes,
that type of person.
It'd be the same contract staff, not
right.
County staff.
Not and then you'd obviously see how it's going. And is there any capacity within the department now to do any of this? Do you do any of this at all?
We do not do any in-house enforcement, so everything is contract.
Well, I'm saying, sorry, let me rephrase. Do the contractors address any of these types of issues right now, currently?
Not the current contract.
Could they in the contract? Let me be even more specific.
It would have to be an expansion of their scope.
Okay.
So they currently don't go to these areas. It's not part of their normal routes or.
Is that because we haven't asked them, or they're not allowed to based on the contract?
So we base the contracts on specific areas that they do need to patrol. So the current contracts don't cover these. Now, once in a while, we might send them here and there to do something, but it's not something that they routinely patrol.
Okay, so you can send them to outside of the parking lot districts every now and then if there's a real bad problem or something.
So the enforcement activity occurs in 3 different areas. The parking lot districts, and those activities are covered within the parking lot district fund, so that's not really that fungible.
Yep.
There's the residential permit program, which is a combination of fee and tax supported.
Yep.
So those resources are a little bit fungible, but it's not a huge amount of patrol activity.
Yep.
And the third is the transportation management district areas, which are paid parking areas as well, but not part of the parking lot districts. And there's a small amount of flexibility there, but the resource allocated to enforcement is to cover those defined areas. So we would be diluting either the revenue generation, the revenue enforcement, or the residential parking enforcement to do these other activities. As Mr. Tamana said, occasionally when we have a severe problem that needs to be addressed, we do dispatch this for that purpose, but it's probably a half a dozen times a year at best.
Okay, so this would be, and so back to this is the scaled down version. You said this is 1 and 1.5 people. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is whether or not this makes this off. I think this is we want to move in this direction. And I would suggest maybe that you think about ways to either incorporated it into what you're already doing in some way, or let us know if there's a cheaper, if there's a $50,000 item that you could add to the contract to get some of it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to suggest. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Balcom.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you. So from the perspective of having a tough budget, we need to look at every single item. We're going to have a very difficult decision with the reconciliation list. All that said, the importance of having a dedicated program of this is that these are chronic problems. And I would be concerned about if this was an add-on to a contract that somebody would come up to Clarksburg once a quarter. That's just not how it works, because in my district, a lot of these issues, we're almost covered with HOAs. The majority of my population is in HOAs. HOAs restrict parking of these vehicles, so they go out and find county roads to park on. And it's an ongoing problem that just continues to grow, and it needs constant surveillance. And, the police do what they can do. We contact them, and they'll go out on occasion and try to write tickets, and they do. But it can't be done on a piecemeal basis. It can't be done as an afterthought. If we're going to do this, it has to be a concentrated effort to get rid of the problem, if we can, even if we can. So I support keeping it on the reconciliation list.
Councilmember Mink.
I really appreciate the questions of colleagues, and I'll just note that I'm still going to vote to keep it on the rec list, but just noting that it would be helpful. I'm hearing now there's not FTEs, but there's obviously this is people who are involved in this, so it's contractors. Just having more details as we move forward, and if this doesn't make it off the reconciliation list, then as we approach this for next time, to have more details about what exactly you anticipate getting for that 250 or less, if you come up with a way to pilot this for less. What areas are they going to be covering? What's the assignment going to be, and whether the best route is to go with an independent, another contractor to the very valid points of the vice president, or whether it would be more economical for a similar result to pilot this with an existing contractor. Details like that would be helpful.
We would amend the current enforcement contract to add this service, so it would be people who are already trained in our parking enforcement systems. As Mr. Tamama said, it's like 1.5 FTE equivalents plus a vehicle. In terms of the patrol areas, we had identified as early action areas, Littonsville, Colesville, Park and Ride, and Gateway Center Drive as areas that we know we have recurring problems, and see how effective it is in those locations. If there's capacity to do more than that with this limited resource, we would do that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to say, great idea, great effort. I am going to support the motion because I know this is not going to survive. Like, once I see my reconciliation list, I'm not going to choose this. So why even entertain the idea? I just not going to do it. So we have a motion on the table. Come back next year. We'll talk about it. But for this budget, this competes with other things that are vital. This is not vital right now. So we have a motion on the table, second. All those in favor of the motion to eliminate the civilian parking enforcement by $250,000, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion fails. Great time. All right. Now, I'm going to start with Councilmember Lori Sales, because you had another issue, and if you and everybody else, please get back in the queue. We'll start with you.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Director Conklin, for all of the work, especially during the snowstorm. That's what I wanted to start my comments with. Knowing that we have an Office of Emergency Management within Health and Human Services, is your department working with them throughout the year, since they told us that I believe it's a team of 6 to 7 leaders on this emergency management team. Are you in touch with them throughout the year to anticipate and plan ahead for emergencies?
Are you talking about Health and Human Services in particular, or emergency management?
Well, emergency management, because, I see that we had our snowstorm. We were a bit caught off guard with how we planned for the snowstorm, and having this emergency management department within HHS that we were briefed on last week. They told us that they work with all the different departments. They were trying to advocate for an additional staff person. So I'm just trying to understand, are you in touch with them throughout the year as they anticipate and plan ahead for emergency situations, or do you have no direct contact with them at all?
I think I understand your question. So the Office of Emergency Management, Homeland Security, we have roughly quarterly exercises and drills with that on different emergency scenarios, whether they're evacuation scenarios, weather-related scenarios. And in that group, it's the Department of Transportation, Police, Fire, Rescue, Department of General Services, Health and Human Services. We all come together to tabletop exercise and to understand communication protocols. Every year we distribute emergency contact information to police, fire, and rescue. I'm not sure HHS is on that list, but in terms of how we would respond and who to call when they need our assistance, and sometimes they need our assistance with pumping of flood water or other emergency response or sheltering individuals. We do coordinate routinely with Health and Human Services on needs of the unhoused in terms of emergency shelter, transportation, and other aspects. And that happens both in weather events and in non-weather events. And Homeland Security and Emergency Management is the hub for that coordination activity generally, but there are also informal connections between the various departments to respond to those needs that happen on a more regular basis. And Health and Human Services is one place, fire and rescue and police are the other places where we have those routine contacts and how to respond and assist.
Okay, I'm thinking about the snowstorm and what planning occurred prior to the snowstorm in anticipation of the big snowstorm we had. Was there any discussion or
Sure.
planning done? Okay.
There are two levels of planning for that. Within the department, there's operational planning in terms of having crews and materials ready to respond. And then at the county-wide level, again, Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security does briefings and preparation activities and goes through the various departments and their operational status and readiness to respond, and sets up, like one example in that is we worked with Homeland Security and Health and Human Services about where to station ride-on vehicles for emergency transport, whether to have them located at hubs where we knew we could then dispatch them to where they were needed, or to have them pre-positioned at Health and Human Services sites. So all of those sorts of preparation activities occur before every forecast large weather event.
And I'm just going to interrupt and say, we had a session on this issue, 2 months ago? And we're going to come back in the fall, that's what we agreed on, to talk about more details. And we had everybody dealing with the snowstorm here. So let's focus on the budget right now. So I just want to just say that let's park the conversation until after the budget as a follow-up of the session that we had just 2 months ago. That's all.
Yeah. Only because we are going to be talking about emergency management in tomorrow's HHS budget, and I want to get a full understanding of how they work with the different departments before we start funding another position. So that was what my line of question was regarding. And congratulations to Director Conklin for your recent appointment to the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. It's great to have your leadership in the region.
Thank you.
I yield. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Thank you, Madam President. As noted by the chair, which I appreciate, I had sent around to colleagues a very modest change. As you're aware, the county executive proposed in his recommended FY 25 to 30 CIP. The council approved at the recommendation of the committee to delay all funding for the Bradley Boulevard improvements project beyond 6 years. Despite my reservations about the ongoing delays and continued support for safety improvements on Bradley Boulevard, which are desperately needed, the funding remains beyond 6 years in the proposed 27 to 32 CIP. Accepted the will of the body. I'm not asking for a change to that, but a constituent and longtime advocate for this project, a community leader, but also a council fellow, raised with me several proposed corrections to the PDF language. They're technical in nature, but allow the PDF to be more specific, update the master plans that are being referenced, make sure that there's some language that speak to what we're connecting to in terms of major destinations, including Capitol Crescent Trail, Cornish Road Greenway, and the Connie Morello Library, and refers to the 2018 County Bikeways Master Plan. Essentially, these changes update the language in the PDF because it's been a project that has been perpetually delayed for so many years that the references in the PDF are not specific to other changes that have been made by the council. They're more technical than substantive, but I do think they clarify things and ultimately would ask for approval of those technical changes as shared with colleagues. So I'll move that now.
We have a motion on the table by Councilmember Friedson. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Glass. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Pass unanimously. Okay, next I have Councilmember Kristen Mink.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the team. And first, Director Conklin, you made a great point at committee about the Burtonsville Flash service enhancement that I'd love for you to emphasize here at the full council, acknowledging that. Oh, that's on the
Can
next
you
one.
please, we're focused on the general plan.
Sorry, okay.
So,
all right, Route 29.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
All right, we'll see. I'm excited. I wanted to start with the good news, but I'll back it up. Okay. So Route 29, wah. Okay. On the Route 29 BRT, as you all know, this has been a journey.
That's next.
This one next also? Okay.
No,
oh my gosh.
mass transit is next.
She's revving her engines.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
we're
All
feeling
right. I apologize, colleagues. I'm in favor of everything discussed. On we go.
So, I don't see anybody else wanting to speak on the Department of Transportation General Fund. We have a committee recommendation that has been amended here on the in session. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous. So now we're gonna move on to the Department of Transportation Mass Transit, but you're gonna have to hold your horses. I'm gonna turn it to the chair of the committee and then council staff. Go ahead.
We've gone from horses to buses. That is the progress of society. And so we discussed all of those buses at committee with primary focus on the various ride-on bus services throughout the county. This is the Department of Transportation Mass Transit Fund, and the fund also provides for the Community Mobility Services Program, which operates various MCDOT programs such as the Transportation Management Districts, the Call and Ride, and other taxi cab regulations and subsidies. The executive's recommendation includes a net of $6.8 million for compensation adjustments and other cost increase that are not required to be placed on the reconciliation list. And these items generally reflect the continuation of current staffing and services. But the T&E committee did recommend 2 items proposed by the county executive be placed on the reconciliation list. The committee recommended that $913,796 be included to expand flex service to Poolesville and Damascus by January 2027. These would fund an additional 10 drivers to operate those zones and 5 new buses, 2 for each zone, and a spare recognizing that there is not a lot of public transit and there is a lot of wide open space in those geography, in that geographic region. And then also the committee recommends $243,775 to extend the Burtonsville Flash service to run all day starting in 2027, and that increase would fund 2 additional drivers and operating costs. The committee did recommend changes to 5 CIP projects. For the ride-on bus fleet, the committee recommends deferring $25.5 million in bus replacements to FY28 and to add $2.4 million from the state BRT fund to refurbish Flash buses in FY27. Committee also recommends bus stop improvements, and the committee removed $9 million in funding beyond 6 years. The committee also removed $3 million beyond 6 years for the transit park and ride lot renovations. And for the North Bethesda Metro Station North entrance, the committee added $500,000 in FY30, which reflects additional state aid, thank you to our state partners, for this project provided by the General Assembly. And last but not least, the committee also recommends that the Phase 2 of the US BRT add language for the project description requiring the evaluation of 1 or no dedicated bus lanes through 4 corners, in addition to the planned 2-way busway approved by the council in 2022 and developed since then through the preliminary design. Another way of saying that is we've heard from the residents and added this language for additional analysis in the CIP specifically. And then the council, the committee also, well, I'll turn to Mr. Kenny about the inadvertent omissions if you want to get to that, since we did not discuss that.
Sure.
Madam President.
Sorry.
No, Mr. Kenny.
Sure. There are 2 technical adjustments to CIP projects beyond what the committee reviewed. These were inadvertently omitted. First is to the Burtonsville Park and Ride Improvements Project. This is to add $2 million in state aid to reflect additional aid pre-authorized in FY28 by the General Assembly. The last time the council reviewed the mass transit CIP, there was a discussion and some more information with DGS about the ongoing nature of this project and the evolving agreement with the state around the Burtonsville Park and Ride lot and the development that's going up there. This $2 million is an effort to mitigate additional costs that were presented at that time. So have to go into detail. I believe we have DGS here. I think no. Anyway, apologies. But it's relatively simple, and this is just additional state aid. And the second technical adjustment is to appropriate Federal Transit Administration grants and adjust cost element allocations for the Veers Mill Road Bus Rapid Transit project. This does not change the expenditure schedule or funding schedule, and rather is just a change in the appropriation to reflect the receipt of the grant.
Which I love. Okay. Is that it? Okay, that was clear. Any no questions?
That's it.
I don't see anybody with a question. Now I do. Councilmember Mink.
All right, I think everybody can guess what I'm going to comment on. And thank you to the committee for the work on this. I first wanted to give Director Conklin a chance to reemphasize the point that you made in committee about the Burtonsville Flash service enhancement.
Sure. The Burtonsville Flash, along with the other Flash that goes to the Briggs Cheney Park and Ride and East County Rec Center, was launched in 2020, and at the time there was not a lot of activity at the Burtonsville Crossing Shopping Center. That dynamic has certainly changed. We've also had a reduction in some Metro bus service to Burtonsville, so that there's not a lot of bus service available to what is emerging as an activity center, and coincident with the project that Mr. Kenny mentioned for redevelopment of the park and ride lot as housing. It seems like an appropriate time, notwithstanding the budget challenge, to establish all-day service to Burtonsville on the Flash, which right now it's only in the peak periods. A key advantage of this proposal is there's no additional equipment needed to operate this service. Those buses are out there in the morning, in the evening. They're not out there in the midday, and they're resting during that time. But we could have those buses working with a relatively modest addition to the budget. Obviously, it's an addition, so I understand what that means. But that would allow us to establish all-day service to Burtonsville and support that growing activity center with the Flash service. And it's something that probably should have been embedded in the original project, but it was not for cost reasons at the time.
Thank you. Appreciate that context, recognizing the fiscal constraints, but also wanted to make sure that colleagues have that context as we go into reconciliation. And I'll note that expanding this service was one of the asks that I got from the Burtonsville community back during the prior election as I was knocking on doors. This was a need that I was hearing about regularly, and that was before some of the burgeoning, economic development work that this council has worked together on, which has obviously only increased the need, and it would really help folks get to and from work and all of those things. And there are folks who do not have vehicles who want this service and are ready to jump on the bus. So whenever we're able to do it, it would be amazing if that was possible this year. But whenever we are able to do it, this is going to be a really needed and well used service. Second, on the Route 29 BRT, so we've been at this for a few years. This council's been at this for a few years. Appreciate everybody's ongoing work on it. We haven't reached the final design phase yet, but I want to thank the committee and Mr. Kenny and DOT for working with my office, working with the community, working with each other. Progress has been made. I do have a motion to make for a small tweak to the PDF language, which the committee had decided against, but as I flagged at the time, I'm going to ask for the council's consideration on it. And I do have to provide just a little bit of context. So I had sent a memo back in March to the T&E committee expressing concerns about the current preliminary design centered around two main issues. The impact of property takings on small businesses like those at the Woodmore Shopping Center and our auto shops in Burnt Mills. Those have been operating as family businesses since the 60s. And second, the potential impact on mobility on the corridor, especially through that Four Corners area. And as we've seen on the University Boulevard corridor tour driving through there, that is a very unique and difficult intersection and landscape there, unique, in the county, really. So in my memo, I suggested three potential paths forward that could potentially address some of the concerns or speak to them. One option would be to remove the dual protected median lanes from the Four Corners stretch of the project, just that Four Corners stretch. A second option, which is something that we have seen on other BRTs in other areas in some difficult patches. A second option would be to run a single median lane just through that Four Corners area, instead of the two median lanes, which could potentially decrease the number of general travel lanes and adjacent property that needs to be taken. And then the third option would be to revisit the managed lane option that was considered back when the council made the design recommendation back in 2022. And as a reminder, and I'll remind you all because I hear all the time from community members, and I'm probably many of you do as well, that mobility study back in 2022 did show that the managed lane option performed better for bus and car users, but the median lane option was chosen because it created a larger delta in travel times between the bus and car users, thus incentivizing people to take the bus. So I have some concerns about that logic, but leaving that discussion for another day. Much appreciation to the committee for including some of the proposed language as noted in the project description form as requested, which requires DOT to study the traffic, the mobility, the cost, and the cut-through traffic implications. That's another huge concern there. Of the two potential options that I put forward, removing the median lanes and having one median lane through Four Corners. I think that's going to be really helpful for the committee and the council to consider as the project moves into the final design stage, and as the PDF notes, it will come back for discussion to the committee with that analysis. My last request is that we add language to have DOT include data on the managed lane option as part of the final analysis. That data already largely exists, except for, I think, probably the cut-through traffic impacts might be a main outstanding piece there. But a lot of that data really already exists. So but I think that it's very important to have that side by side there with all three options. So as noted, the committee did decline to add that language in committee. So I'm going to make a motion today to try to add that language, including that option. I think would provide the transparency and the confidence that all options were genuinely considered before the project moves into the construction phase. And I want to emphasize again that my concerns are about the impact that the current design is going to have on the area there, the small businesses, the traffic and mobility in Burnt Mills and Four Corners. I do not want, obviously, to kill or delay the project. We need better transit options for our residents, but I think that this tweak to make sure that we do have all three options side by side is really, really going to be helpful. I think that the basic logic for not including it is that it's not going to come out as the best option. It's going to be, it's going to be problematic or, expensive, just adding a lot of design costs, something like that given the scale of the change. But I think that it's still going to be useful to have that for transparency's sake as part of the side by side. So if it's not the best option, let's show that. And if we're not sure if it's the best option, then I think we should make sure before we move into the construction phase. So the motion would be to add in that PDF language to the end of the second sentence of the language that is in the packet. Apologies, I don't have the page number up in front of me.
Page 2 of the cover sheet. It's also in the committee staff report.
Page 2. Okay.
It's right in the middle. It's underlined in red. I believe the language about to be
Okay,
referenced.
perfect. Thank you. So adding after transit performance and cost, adding as will the previously considered managed lane concept. So I'm going to move that we add that language to the PDF.
We have a motion. Second, I'm going to open it up for discussion. I'm going to start with Councilmember Don Lukey.
Sorry, I wasn't going to speak to this motion, so skip me.
I have the chair of the committee, Evan Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the district council members' engagement and the time she spent in committee, which led us to have a very long conversation yesterday about the George B. Thomas Learning Academy. But here we are talking about this today, so thank you. Again, very much appreciate the collaboration that we have had because the committee did unanimously adopt the suggestion that you originally brought. And I think it's important for this conversation. Mr. Kenny, can you, for the public record, state the amended language that Councilmember Mink brought to the committee and that the three committee members accepted?
Sure. So I will read the language that the committee added based on the suggestion by the council member. Alongside final design for a two-way busway, alternative technical concepts for 1 or 0 dedicated transit lanes through Four Corners will be evaluated for construction-related impacts, transit performance, and cost. Adjacent neighborhood traffic impacts and potential mitigation will also be evaluated as part of final design. MCDOT will brief the T&E committee after the analysis is completed and before proceeding to construction.
Thank you for that, and thank you again, Councilmember Mink, for bringing that to us, because I believe all the questions you've asked are addressed and will be analyzed in that amended language, and the additional information that is sought by your own recognition already exists. And it was reviewed in the previous council. Now, I understand if there are disagreements with what the previous council decided. I understand that. But it was based on analysis. And it was based on the data which already exists. Director Conklin, I have a very specific question for you. Why has the county executive continued to put this project as designed in the CIP budget?
Well, the county executive believes that the BRT that's present on US 29 doesn't provide the level of performance and travel time advantage and security for transit that he thinks BRT should. It relies significantly on mixed traffic operations and shoulder use in the northern part of the corridor, and he's advocated for a more reliable system that has a dedicated running way for BRT.
as I've said before, and I'll say it again, one of the things I very much appreciate about the county executive is his BRT vision throughout the county. It has taken far too long to build out during his tenure, but here we are talking about it finally coming to fruition in a form that is still open to change based on the language that is included in that CIP. Director Conklin, I want to ask you a second question that's been referenced. What does this analysis, especially the analysis that has already been adopted by the committee, what does it do to the timeline of the project?
As proposed, it doesn't change the timeline of the project. What we would do is develop these alternate technical concepts for this area as we finalize the design and evaluate the performance of those alternate technical concepts. And much like the council, the Department of Transportation wants the most cost-effective, best-performing alternative to be the one that's constructed.
And that seems to align with what Councilmember Mink said, because she said she doesn't want to delay this project, and so I'm glad to hear that any analysis does not delay the project, but provides an additional level of information beyond the information that already exists. And I just want to connect the two things that we've talked about just now. We started this conversation by talking about Burtonsville Flash. And Burtonsville Flash and the enhanced all-day service is specifically to serve a community that needs more bus service. And they've advocated it in the previous election, they're advocating for it now, and this budget reflects that need. It is the most transit-dependent area in Montgomery County. And if we are going to put forward money for Burtonsville Flash in this budget to make sure that they have fast and reliable bus service, the best way to continue that is by having fast and reliable BRT. The two are inseparable. Director Conklin, will the Burtonsville Flash eventually become the BRT?
It already is and will be a better BRT if we get more travel time reliability on the corridor.
Thank you very much. I yield back, Madam President.
Thank you. Next, we have another member of that T&E committee, Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you, and thank you to Councilmember Mink for her advocacy. I actually think we spent 2 committee sessions discussing this, I went, as I mentioned in committee, since these decisions, the decisions were made really by the prior council, went back and reviewed that committee session, and that's how we listened to Councilmember Mink and her concerns and landed on the language that you have before you. We did discuss in the last committee session the amended language Councilmember Mink is moving forward now. And I think, Director Conklin, you did talk in the last committee session about if we did add this language, what it would do to the timeline and cost of the project.
Well, the managed lanes alternative is a fundamentally different concept for the road. It talks about repurposing the inside lanes, the ones next to the median, as HOV2 bus lanes. That's not a concept that exists elsewhere in the region. There is an HOV lane on US 1 in Alexandria. It doesn't perform particularly well. It doesn't advantage bus service particularly well. That alternative was also included several major capacity improvements for motor vehicle traffic at key locations in the corridor, some at the very northern end near Blackburn Road, some at the Beltway interchange. Those are not part of the current project. That's where a lot of the travel time advantage was coming from in that alternative. And the design of the other alternative has not been touched since 2020 when the alternative studies were completed. So we're now at 2026. So that's quite a long time since those were evaluated at all. And there's not a good basis for advancing that design without bringing that design forward, which would take time. I think Councilmember Mink mentioned summary of the previous studies. That information is available. Actually, the second study that was completed in 22 tried to normalize the alternatives and make them apples to apples to provide a better comparison and reach the conclusion that was reached at the time.
Thank you.
Great questions, and I have been receiving lots of emails about this, and I have, as a response to everybody who has written to my office, I have placed the history of this project with the links. I'm going to support the committee recommendation. I just want to state that on the record right now. Councilmember Kristen Mink.
Thank you. I appreciate the conversation, and and by way of explanation, I think the value of this, the community is calling for this in the name of transparency, which I think makes sense. We've heard that adding this language would not actually change anything. Then we've heard that it would actually cause, significant time and effort. There's a lot of conflicting things being said, and I think that ultimately what the community is asking for is a really clear side-by-side analysis of these three options. And what we have laid out in the language is two of them, which I appreciate. But it is missing the third, and I think that is going to, given the fact that the one that is missing is the one that was shown to have the faster travel times for buses as well as cars, I think that is going to continue to be a concern of the community if it seems like that option is not taken seriously. So I appreciate the conversation and I would, and I appreciate the consideration, appreciate the work of the committee and the work of DOT. And I would just like to see the side-by-side compared together. So if it looks like Mr. Kenny is reaching for.
If I can help clarify some of the textual
that'd be great.
Concerns. I suppose this is a grammar exercise, if nothing else. But based on my read of the council member's suggestion, this would study managed lanes throughout the entire corridor rather than just Four Corners, correct? Because it would come after. It would say, okay, we're studying these things through Four Corners. They'll be evaluated for transit performance, impacts, and cost, and then also studying the entire managed lanes option throughout the corridor.
Yeah, my understanding is that to do managed lanes, there isn't really functionally an option to do just managed lanes just in the Four Corners area.
Right.
So the managed lane concept, and thank you for clarifying that, does impact design of the entire space. So obviously we're not going to carry this, through final design, but in terms of the information that we have available, what can we learn in terms of a side-by-side?
Right. Yeah, I think the conception that this was a relative, basically covered in the existing amendment was based on an understanding that it would just be related to Four Corners, which makes sense given the rest of the language is currently about Four Corners. But in terms of the scope and scale, I think the answer about the large scale of this compared to the existing is accurate.
Thank you for the clarity. Okay, so yes, in order to ensure that we are doing a side-by-side that includes the managed lane option, we would need to add the language. So I am gonna put forward the amendment because I think it's important for transparency.
Next, I have Councilmember Wojo-Wando.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Kenny. That was going to be one of my questions. I obviously second the motion because I wanted to have the discussion. I've heard a lot about this too, and a lot of us drive through this area quite a bit. And I was on the previous council when we had some of this discussion as well. So I just want to be 100% clear. The statements that were made about this language incorporating the request, they're not correct because you would need to look at the managed lanes outside of just Four Corners. That's what I heard you just say. So that would take a little long. That would be a more in-depth process.
Correct. The language approved by the committee evaluates the number of transit lanes just through Four Corners.
Got it.
And those impacts. I believe the council member's recommendation would expand the scope of that evaluation to be evaluating the managed lanes options throughout the entire US 29 BRT corridor.
All right, and Director Conklin, you've been reaching for your mic, so please.
Yeah, in the managed lanes alternative in Four Corners itself, there is no transit provision. It's mixed traffic in that area, so the no transit lanes in this analysis is what's embedded in the managed lanes alternative. The question that is being asked is the entire corridor is a different concept of operation, but in terms of Four Corners itself, no transit lanes is what's in the managed lane alternative.
Correct. So, and what would be the impact on, what do you see as the impact and or utility of this request? What is your objection, assuming you have one, of studying this and having it just be in there? Here's not necessarily changing your opinion about which one is the best, but just having it all there. It's more of a time. I'm trying to understand that.
If you're talking about summarizing the studies that have been completed, which led to the alternative selection, I mean, those are relatively short documents to begin with, so I'm not sure what the value of further summarizing those is. But if you wanted to actually understand all of the construction-related impacts, one has been advanced through preliminary engineering. One is still magic markers on paper. So it's not possible to, without significant engineering work, to advance the one that wasn't selected for design a few years ago to a similar place.
Got it. And that's what would slow things down,
yes,
in your view. And to the point that Councilmember Mink made about managed lanes being faster in the analysis, what would you say to that?
That's accurate. The managed lanes project, again, included highway improvements that sped all travel on the corridor. And even when they're normalized and those improvements are included with bus lanes, there's still a slight advantage in terms of car travel for the
so
managed
your point
lanes
is
option.
not disputing that it would be faster, just that it's not financially feasible or time. What's the?
So the major objections are that it is a significant delay to advance that design for comparison. That's not what the county typically does. It typically picks an alternative and moves that alternative forward, which is what happened in 2022.
Right.
There's not precedent or actually a legal mechanism for enforcing an HOV transit lane on an arterial in Maryland, so there's not a legal framework that allows it to happen. The physical, if we were to do this through physical enforcement, which it could be done through physical enforcement, that's a draw on police resources and very difficult to accommodate in the design of the facility without creating more traffic congestion from the enforcement activity. And the basis of Four Corners, the managed lane is no lane. There's no transit provision through Four Corners, and that is already being evaluated as part of the language that was adopted by the committee. So we already know what the performance of the two fundamentally different alternatives was, and the council made that decision. We'll know what the impacts of not having transit dedication in Four Corners is compared to one lane and two lanes. So I'm not sure there's a whole lot to be learned through the exercise.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you for the answers. Thank you, Madam President.
Is there something else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'll just note that there's a write-up of this in the council's staff report from the committee work session on March 2nd that kind of goes through the various layers of study and analysis and some of the more recent discussions and issues that the executive and MCDOT have brought up.
Thank you. Next, I have Councilmember Shevra Evans.
Sure. Actually, Councilmember Chwando, I was going to withdraw, but Councilmember Chwando asked all the questions that helped me to get a little bit of a better understanding, because to Councilmember Mink's point, I've heard some similar things that she's heard in her district. So I just wanted to make sure I was well informed. And so thank you for your questions that you just asked. I just wanted to be on record to saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you again for the conversation. Through this discussion, it has now been stated that the inclusion of the extra language, the additional language, would cause a delay, which was stated by the district council member hoping not to do. But I think more importantly, the information exists. And I appreciate Councilmember Stewart, who, this intersection, Four Corners, where I live and is literally the intersection of 3 council districts. The Beltway, University, Colesville, Arcola, all of that is the intersection of 3 council districts, and as an at-large member, I happen to live there as well. And so know it extremely well, know what the community concerns are, but I want to refocus this. The bus rapid transit is to help people who rely on public transit in Burtonsville, which has already been noted, needs more transit options. It needs more transit options to the point that we're actually adding money to this budget to further help them. And I can't help but think of the conflicting messages that are at play. Either we want to help people get to work and get home and get to Montgomery College and get to their doctors at Adventist faster, or we want them to be stuck in mixed-use traffic. That's what the decision is. And I respect if people disagree with the county executive's proposal. I understand that. But to request more information beyond what already exists, and there's not going to be any additional information because it already exists, I think it's okay to say that there's disagreement and disapproval of this project, and that is the decision. But to expect there to be something else that comes out of this analysis, it's already there. And there's acknowledgement among everybody on this body that information already exists.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion by Councilmember Mink, please raise your hand. 1 and 2. Councilmember Sales, I don't see you. Okay. 2. Against? Raise your hand. Against, right? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The motion fails. We're going to move on. I have Councilmember Don Lukey next.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to speak briefly to the, I know we have many things to consider, but just wanted to highlight the flex service that's proposed for Damascus and Poolsville and the information that you've shared in Table 6. And I am very grateful for the flex service that was added to cover the Ashton Sandy Spring area when we lost service through WMATA to that area. Just wanted to emphasize that these areas, both Damascus and Poolsville, are projected to have significant ridership because there isn't any other alternative up there. And also the concept of the flex service, I do truly believe serves these areas better than some of the fixed route services. And so wanted to give you a chance to speak to that since I don't sit on the T&E committee and just sort of discuss those issues in those regions.
Sure, and General Manager Phil McLaughlin is with us today too to amplify this, but there's been a request for expanded transit access to these communities. As you indicated, it's difficult for people to access a fixed route location because the distances may be a half or more mile of walking to get to the location that the bus is. In Poolsville, there's peak period bus service that takes people to Shady Grove for commuting purposes. There's not a lot of access to service via Ride-On because there's no real destinations at Shady Grove Metro Station for people to get healthcare, shopping, and other things. So the proposal here was to add flex service that links Poolsville to Germantown, where those services are more readily available. And similarly in Damascus, there's I would call it a complex route structure serving Damascus that at some points of the day serves some commercial activity, at other points is just Shady Grove. And the notion was to have that service also be able to access these services. And the main advantages of this system is that it works sort of like Uber or Lyft, except that it's a ride-on fare, which is zero, and it allows direct transfer to the rest of the transit system. And it can pick you up near your origin, so within a few hundred feet of your home, and take you to near your destination. And the way the system works, it aggregates these ride requests and develops a routing for the vehicle that serves all the pickup and drop-off locations. That's why some of the productivity measures are relatively low, because without a lot of use, then you're seeing moving one person at a time. But as you get more use, you get more efficiency out of the vehicle.
Hi, Phil McLaughlin. I would note one other thing about the services. In Poolsville, they operate peak period only. So they function in Poolsville functions as a commuter service. In Damascus, it's all day service, 5 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, but there's no weekend service there. And this flex program introduces weekend service, which we've had a lot of requests in both communities.
Yes, and to be fair, in Damascus, the weekend or lack of weekend service currently has been a number one issue that gets raised, and the second part being the fixed route issue, where it's difficult for people. I mean, some of the fixed routes that serve that area presently are on roads with posted speed limits of 45 miles an hour or above, and the bus stop is in the middle of the road. So somebody's got to stop and you have to get a ride to the bus stop to begin with out there. There's no sidewalks. There's nothing like that. And it's not particularly safe. So just wanted to flag that for everyone as we work through considering these issues on reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next, Council Vice President Balcom.
following my sister in the Up County. So I know that this is a big number. It's a bright, shiny number on the reconciliation list. So I recognize that. But when we talk about the flex bus concept, these two communities were made for this. This is the exact type of community that we should think about flex bus for. And when we talk about just equity of transit service throughout the county, I think this is the solution. And we get into discussions all the time of roads versus transit, and we can't have this discussion if we don't have actual transit. So I think this is important. And it's not just the distance of being far away, but it really is the lack of service. There is not a grocery store in Poolesville. There is not a grocery store in Poolesville. And so I hope you consider it when we are all making these very tough decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
I appreciate that. I was hoping you would mention that, and I figured you would as the Poolesville council member. I did want to note the grocery store. I also think when you look at the worst health outcomes in the county, the number one reason for that is transportation access. And when we make decisions at the council, including M85, and Inter-County Connector, and other dynamics, M83, and we talk about up-county transportation infrastructure, as we did during Clarksburg. You talk about having it both ways. You can't have it neither way. And I think that's kind of the dynamic that we have here. So it's a difficult dynamic, but ultimately it's difficult for us to say that we're supporting up-county infrastructure, saying that we support transit, but then not providing transit and transportation options for people who are up-county, particularly in areas that have no other alternatives. So I just want to lift up colleagues on that. I really appreciate it. And I do think that this is the type of scalpel approach that makes sense in particular areas of the county, and these areas specifically make lots of sense to have this type of service, which will a big shiny number, I think was referenced. It's much more cost effective than some of the other transit alternatives that we have. And so this was, I believe, the department's thoughtful response to the community demands based on the needs that they have, to say, we can't really provide you what you're asking for right now based on the constraints that we have. Here's something that we can realistically provide, which costs money, but it's a more realistic number and serves the needs based on the dynamics that you have. And I think it's a really important way for us to move forward, and I'm hopeful that we can figure out a way to make it happen.
Thank you. I don't have anybody else wanting to speak. We have a motion to approve the Department of Transportation mass transit budget as amended with the technical issues that the staff addressed. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. Thank you very much. We're going to move forward with item number 6, which is the Department of Transportation parking lot districts. I'm going to turn it back to the chair of T&E, Mr. Glass.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And the parking lot districts we'll talk about today is part of the Department of Transportation, but appreciate your partnership and collaboration as the Econ Committee Chair. The two committees have talked a lot about parking lot districts and the funding for our urban districts, which are tied. But sticking to MCDOT right now, this item, the parking lot districts, contains a total of $191,998, which were placed on the reconciliation list. And that includes nearly $150,000 for an FTE for a new transportation contract compliance inspector, and also $42,000 for a new fleet vehicle maintenance. The committee also recommended changes to the capital budget for the facility planning parking. The committee recommends eliminating $90,000 for the Silver Spring parking lot district funding, as deferred funds are sufficient to meet planned activities. With regard to the parking in Bethesda and facility renovations, there's a $895,000 increase for the Bethesda PLD, and current revenue funding for this project to support gate and payment system enhancements in Garage 31. There is also revised funding, a decrease of $276,000 for the parking in Silver Spring for facility renovations. It's a cost adjustment because of the revised schedule from FY27 to FY30. The committee also recommends adding $400,000 to the Wheaton PLD for current revenue for the Wheaton facilities renovations across FY28 and FY29 to support the elevator tower renovations in Garage 45. And also of note, the committee accepts the county executive's recommended change to eliminate the urban district transfers to the tune of nearly $2 million. The executive is recommending this elimination of transfer from the 3 PLDs to their respective urban districts. In FY26, these transfers were $1.5 million to Bethesda, $150,000 to Silver Spring, and $225,000 from Wheaton, each from the PLD to their urban district. Lots of conversations about that, about how we course correct that, make that more sustainable, but that is part of also the joint committee because that money is going to the urban districts. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you so much for that. And before I send it to staff, I just want to add that in the Economic Development Committee, we discussed, and we're going to talk about urban districts later, the need of having a session during the fall to reimagine urban districts in Montgomery County. The needs are now larger, but also the way they were set up in the past, they are not working in today's environment. So that work is going to happen in the fall. And I know in my urban district in Wheaton, I am working with WUDAC to have a meeting on this particular item, or issue, I should say, in July. So I just wanted, for transparency, I just wanted to say that. I'm going to turn it now to council staff for anything that the chair has missed.
I'll just note from a procedural standpoint that the reconciliation list items will obviously be noted as non-tax supported, and so are not part of the general calculus of the reconciliation list as the council has been discussing, but still kind of remain on the list as per the council president's approach.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. Very important point. Does DOT have anything?
Thank you for the committee chair's report out. It covered most of the major items. I'd like to mention that, once upon a time, these funds had their own tax. That tax doesn't exist, so they had more capabilities in terms of supporting other functions back before 2016. These 3 parking lot districts also are under significant financial strain, starting in financial FY20 through FY2022. They have started to recover, but again, parking demand is not what it once was. In terms of commuting and all-day parking, which was a significant source of revenue for these PLDs. The Office of Management and Budget and our Parking Services group has worked hard to avoid rate increases for the parking lot districts, and that's what's reflected here. The fiscal health of the parking lot districts is varied. The Silver Spring parking lot district is on a very thin margin in terms of covering its expenses. Bethesda is slightly better, but that rate of reserve is declining year after year in the 6-year program. And the numbers are much smaller in Wheaton because Wheaton is a much smaller parking lot district, but currently is fiscally healthy. But again, we're seeing those increases due to inflationary pressures and operating the parking lot districts meshed up against no change in rates and not the revenue growth that you might expect. So The trajectory of all three in terms of their fiscal health is not particularly strong. But in this particular budget proposal, the services are maintained, critical enhancements and repairs to the facilities are made, and we're not placing an additional burden on the business districts which support them through rate increases. So I think it's a good balancing act for the parking lot districts, but the long-term trajectory is still problematic for the financial model of all three of these.
I look forward to working with you in the fall. Thank you for saying those issues. It's really important. With that, I don't have anybody else wanting to speak. We have a recommendation from the Transportation Environment Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. We're going to move on to item 7, Vision Zero, non-departmental account. Turning it back to the chair.
Thank you very much, Madam President. As we get situated, I was looking at Mr. Holland. He's sitting down. It's okay. Appreciate Mr. Holland's work and Director Conklin and everybody who worked to make our roads safer. Last year, we know that 678 of our neighbors were injured while walking or biking. That's why this is so incredibly important. And the committee adopted the county executive's recommended budget, and there is one item on the reconciliation list, and that is $30,000 for the Safe Streets for All program. And here's the important thing to note for colleagues. While it will go on the reconciliation list, this $30,000 investment is going to be matched to become a $300,000 investment to update our Vision Zero action plan. And that is part of another program. So we're required for a 20% match to help us with this work, and that's what the $30,000 signifies. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else from staff? And nothing from the DOT team? I think this is clean. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. Double checking. With that, we have a recommendation from the Transportation Environment Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And it's approved. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 8, FY27 transportation fees, charges, and fares. Turning it back to Chair Glass.
So in short, the committee unanimously recommended the county executive's recommended FY27 resolution on transportation fees, charges, and fares. I'm not going to delineate all the different items that are in there. If anyone wants, it's on the public record. And that was a unanimous report out.
Thank you very much. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak, and council staff doesn't have anything else to add. We have a committee recommendation. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. With that, everyone,
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Okay, this is our last item of the morning. See you all back at 1:30. Thank you.
Thank you.